order. And Madam Secretary, and for full disclosure, just want you to know, I have been triple booked this afternoon. So as long as we have a quorum, I will be on the call. But if I can please ask, I will be on the call and I will be, there. But if I can please ask staff to please proceed with the meeting without any delays from my half.
10-4, we will.
Okay, because Ms. Laura will not be on the call, just the FYI. So if we can go ahead and call roll, please.
Okay, Miss Levy Bazemore? Ms. Coleman Farrell? Mr.
Just a
Collins?
reminder to call the roll with the agencies as well as the individuals that's representing the agencies, please.
Okay, Ms. Bazemore, Coalition for Black Student Achievement? No. Ms. Coleman Farrell, Palm Beach State College? I don't have her.
She's on.
Okay.
Hi there, I'm present. Good afternoon, everyone.
Mr. Collins, School Board, District 4. He is not present. He's normally here physically, and he's not here this evening. Dr. Diaz, Hispanic Education Coalition. He just joined. Reginald.
Here.
Aidi and Axion, Inc. We know Laura Feldman is not present. Rachel Frischberg, School District 3.
I'm here.
Randy Gabriel, ESC.
Here, present.
Sherelle Golden, School District 1.
Here.
And Charmin Postal, you are here. Imran Siddiqui, School Board District 5. I have not seen him sign on yet. Corey Smith, School Board District 7. And I have not seen him sign that yet either. Christine Tibbs, School Board District 2.
Here.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we,
I'm here. I may have missed a roll.
that's okay, Dr. Diaz, thank you. With the phone number ending in 76.
That's me, Christine Tibbs, 7476.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I have 8. So we have a quorum.
And I'm admitting our new member.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Did I hear that we have quorum correctly?
Yes, we do.
Okay, hearing that we have quorum, we can please move on to the approval of minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Minutes, all in favor, or are there any questions or discussions regarding the minutes from last month? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes are approved as presented, or as been distributed from last meeting. Public comment at this time, is there anyone in the room that have public comment or online that have public comment? And if there's anyone who was not identified at this time during the roll call, if you can please identify who you are in the room for the record.
Okay, we do not have, Madam Chair, we do not have any public comments here in the boardroom, but we do have some visitors with us. That's going to take us through the biggest part of our agenda item, which is our master board analysis that we will be continuing from last month meeting, and also around the course acceleration. So I'll have them to open their mics and they'll introduce themselves for the record.
Immediately after, did you want to go ahead and have the updates from the Chief Academic Office?
Yes, immediately after the introductions from our guests, I'll go ahead and then do the update from the Chief Academic Office.
Perfect, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Sanders. I'm one of the elementary instructional superintendents with the district.
Good evening. My name is Craig Summer. I'm the instructional superintendent for high schools in the South region. Proud to be here.
And good evening. My name is Adam Miller. I'm the Chief of Performance Accountability. It's good to see everyone again. I hope everyone is having a lovely evening.
Okay, so you could see I brought the practitioners, those that are really working very closely with our schools, with our principals, our teachers, and of course with Mr. Turney as it pertains to the work around our master board analysis, course acceleration. So I brought them in this afternoon, so I'm going to leave a large part of the discussion to make certain that they have time to talk about the work and that you have time to get as many of your questions and provide the feedback that we definitely always like to hear from each of you. So as I move into the updates from the Chief Academic Office, I do want to thank each of you for logging on and to say that I hope that you all fared well with that surprise that we had last week. I did not see that one coming. With that storm Nicole. Leave it to the females. We will do it. Throw on those surprises. So I hope you and your family fared well. So with that being said, I'm going to go directly into some of my comments. And again, I'll leave some for later, but I want to make certain that we have enough time for our guest that's with us this evening. Coming from just some updates, I do want to thank, I saw many of you that came out and supported us at our college, at our Choice Fair. Our Choice Fair showcase of schools, right now, that window is open where our families have an opportunity to apply for many of our outstanding choice and career programs. Data showed that we had about 14,000 participants that came through the fairgrounds on the 18th to look in regards to our offerings and so forth. And you know that, again, with Ian, Storm Ian was not nice to us because we had to reschedule our college fair, and that was rescheduled back for November the 1st. I was a little wary and concerned, but we continue working with communications and our stakeholders and putting the word out there for our high school students because we wanted to just try to bring them back and make certain that we were showcasing not just our colleges and universities, but we also did our apprenticeship program, and also making certain that we wanted to not just be about college, but it also talks around our college and career fairs, because we understand that many of our students may go directly into the workforce. Some will have to go on to continuing their studies, working at the same time. So we wanted to just make certain we were providing many various opportunities along with that, and also, of course, the armed forces and so forth. And with that, we had about 3,300 participants. And again, we're going to continue just to work with our students and look for ways that we continue to partner with our local colleges and universities here, and, with Career Source and other entities in regards to how do we continue to just market our students and making certain that we're giving them those resources that they are indeed need of. Also, just want to, of course, celebrate, not sure that you all are aware, but we have 2 new schools that will be opening up for next year in school year 24. We have our new middle school there that's in the Boynton Beach area, which has now been named the West Boynton Middle School, where Joe Picia is the principal there. So, working very closely with the new schools that are opening. And then lastly, at the last meeting, not sure if those of you were able to participate, but we also had our Triple O, that was known as Triple O, no longer known as Triple O, to where we have now named our Triple O school, which is known as our Dr. Joaquin Garcia High School, where Oscar Otero is the principal there. So, right now, we are just working with both principals, in terms of navigating through those choice pieces. They're now having those conversations around the boundaries and so forth. There's a lot of work to be done, but definitely just excited about how we're moving forward with the naming now of both of our schools, the middle school and the high school there. So a lot to be thankful and grateful for on that. And also here from the academic side, we're just continuing, with our ongoing professional developments, our cadre trainings, because we are, really have embracing these new BEST standards, which is totally different way of thinking and working there closely with our teachers and our students. I had an opportunity not last week, the week prior to where I was out for about 3 days, really and truly just doing some class walkthroughs, visiting schools and looking at the work from a curriculum standpoint to see how we continue to support our teachers and our students. So we do have a lot of great work that are happening out there. And I said that because, sometimes we tend to get caught up and forget about not just around all the legislative mandates, which we are going to be in compliance and we respect them, but at the same time, getting out to the schools, looking to see the kind of impact that is having and how do we support our schools and navigating in those spaces. And most recently, we had because we do follow, all of the legislative updates and so forth to make certain that we are adjusting accordingly. And there was one piece you all are probably making sure that you're aware of. The classroom libraries, when we started at the beginning of the year, and we were talking in regards to the instructional, the instructional core materials that our students will be utilized, are being instructed from, well, we had to list all of those textbooks that we considered core onto the district's instructional materials website, to where parents have an opportunity where they can go on to your instruction materials website, they can go to their schools, and they could see by each grade level in regards to what is the core, that is the core instructional resource that is being utilized to instruct that particular course. But now for our elementary students, our elementary schools, we now must include in that our classroom libraries. So now working through those pieces in regards to what will that look like in our elementary schools in terms like bringing together all of the classroom libraries that could be used for, small group instruction, students' independent reading and so forth. That may have not necessarily been part of that core, but some other resources that were brought in by the teacher, what have you. But going through and making certain that we are uploading those resources, that's something that we are working on here as a district. Just wanted to put that out there. And also, the last piece before I turn it over to the group is that you will notice coming up on our November the 30th board meeting, another new piece is around our required instruction, the required instruction through the 1003.42. Any instructional materials that are being utilized to provide instruction, and I'm going to use around those mandated pieces, we have to make certain that if they did not go through an adoption cycle, that we take those pieces through the required adoption cycle. So we did have some pieces that did not necessarily go through the adoption because there are additional resources that we may be pulling to infuse into a curriculum around the required mandates. I will use Suite 360 as an example because that is used around the mental health piece, around the human trafficking, sex trafficking, and so forth. So that did not go through a required instruction, and I only use that as an example. So that was one piece that we needed to take through. So we do have some pieces for the required instruction that will be going through, coming forward to the board to start that adoption process, which we did prior to last week. So there's a lot more that I could just continue to provide an update on, but this is just a high-level update in regards to some of the work, the big bucket of work that we were involved in over on the academic side. So I will stop there, Madam Chair, and take any questions. And again, I wanted to leave a large portion for the team to be able to take us through, some of the data points around the course acceleration, and then, of course, the feedback and conversation around the master board analysis, because we will be starting that process, and getting the feedback from this group is very important.
Questions at this time? The floor is open for questions. And with the start in the room and alternate with the online form.
I just have a comment. The naming of Triple O High School after Dr. Joaquin Garcia, my predecessor as chairman of the Hispanic Education Coalition, constitutes the first school of any level in the Palm Beach County District named after a Latino. And I'm happy to say that we at least have one now.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Garcia. And I'm sorry, guys, my computer just completely shut down. I'm sorry, I didn't see. Someone open their mic. Did someone?
Any further?
Are there any additional questions or feedback? But again, thank you, Dr. Diaz. I'm sorry, my computer went completely down on me. But thank you, Dr. Diaz, for that feedback. Yes, we are indeed excited for the naming of, Triple O after Dr. Joaquin Garcia. Me coming into this role, of course, that's when I got to really work and meet Dr. Garcia. We are indeed excited here as well and looking forward to continuing to work alongside there with the community. So if there is no additional question or feedback for myself at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Miller and the team. I'm just going to pull up the slide deck.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to start us off very briefly. We did bring back to you as part of the board presentation for the fall instruction review. I do have the data piece. However, just delivering the data piece, we think without the context, wouldn't be beneficial to you. So we've invited Dr. Sanders and Dr. Summer, who are very integral in this work. And they're going to take us through the why and the how. And I'll finish up with some of our results so far. So, team, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll go to the next slide.
Thanks so much, Dr. Miller. So as we go through this, I think we just want to really first frame what the master schedule process is. And I think this slide does a really good job, if everybody can see it, because it's a circle. And a circle lets us know it is continuous, and it is something that we work on throughout the school year. So if you think about where we are currently in the FY23 school year, 22-23. Next school year will be the FY24 school year, the 23-24 school year. So we've already started working on the FY24 master schedule. And if you look at the plan side, it's pretty neat. It aligns to our state's model of Plan, Do, Check, Act, or the Florida Continuous Improvement model of the cycle of you are planning in August through December. You are looking at what you're currently offering as a school, and you're making considerations as to what you want to change from August through December. This is just the big picture. And then we all remember from high school where we have kids that are in high school or grandkids, and we know that the kids go through what's called course selection. Well, when does that happen? That happens after the planning, and the course selection will be for the next school year. That's typically between January and March. And our district's done a pretty good job the last number of years putting timelines on this. So it is our requirement to finish our course selection for all students in schools before spring break, which is the end of March. And that gives us time then to go from the red, which was the planning, and the gray, which was the course selection, to the blue, which is evaluating, adjusting, and looking at our course requests, more of which we'll expand on in just a minute, because that's really what tonight's all about. And then finalizing over the summer, which is our act, what our schedule looks like. This process allows us to get away from what maybe it was like when I was in high school, which is a long time ago. I'm a Palm Beach County High School graduate, and the goal of the master schedule was to have it ready for the first day so there's no kids in the gymnasium. This process allows us to be as proactive and, most importantly, intentional as possible to give our students access, opportunity, and most importantly, to leverage student learning to its maximum. So that's really what we're going to talk about tonight. And our next slide kind of gives us a little more detail as to what that looks like. It's the circle, but kind of, in a different format to where in November through December, we're developing what the course selection process is going to be, we're planning our courses and so on, and then each step shows you what I just kind of spoke to, okay? The reason why we want to use the summertime to finalize some things, if you look all the way to the right, July through August, that's when we get our FSA scores, our AP scores, our ACE scores, and if you know what that is, I'll go through it in just a second. But we get all of our data, and that's why it's a process, and we want to use data as well throughout this process, okay? So I'm going to skip ahead a few slides and talk about high school before my amazing counterpart, Dr. Sanders, speaks to elementary, okay? So keep going about 3 slides ahead to beginning with the end in mind, okay? So go back 1 slide. So let's talk high school for just a second, because that's my part before I hand it to the incredible Jen Sanders. You think about what's the portrait of our graduates. We've got to begin, if we're going to really be intentional about our students, we got to think ahead as to what courses do they need, what skills do they need, what makes up a graduate, and what courses must our students take to successfully compete to get into the college of their choice. It's competitive out there. And we don't want to just leave it to the families. We want to be able to provide every single student with the courses they deserve and are able to take and be successful, and so that they have that chance to be in college, career, whatever. Number 3 is, how do we ensure that all of them meet their highest potential for academic achievement to maximize college and career readiness? Those are 3 guiding questions we want to think about throughout this process. We're thinking high school, right? And I want to drill down even more on the next slide, which speaks to college level work. Because our big initiative, as we know, is getting our high school kids to complete successful college level work. And there's 4 options. There's what's called Cambridge Advanced International Certificate of Education, also known as ACE. There's College Board AP. That's been around for a while. But I put this in this order for the fact that our number 1 college level work in high school at this point is now ACE. It's really exploded in the state of Florida. Students really do well with it. And it really provides opportunity to college level work that a lot of students didn't get in the past. It's a really nice introductory. Some kids take college level work as early as their freshman year. We also have International Baccalaureate, or IB. That's not as popular. That's why it's listed as number 3, although it's a fantastic program. Some will argue it's the top. It's an opinion, though, not a fact. It is a great program to get into an Ivy League school, but we don't offer that at every single high school. You have to apply and be approved because it is very regimented and specific to be able to offer that program. And then, of course, the 4th is dual enrollment. That's taken at the college. I put a little asterisk there because some schools actually offer it on campus. Okay, so when I talk about, and we talk about access to college level work, that's what we're talking about. The beauty of the dual enrollment is that all you need to do is pass the class and you get the college credit. The other 3, you can be in the course in high school, and at the end of the year, when you take the test and you don't pass it, you don't get the credit. Okay, so just a little bit of background, and I wanted to point this out for us. And I love the little fact in the top right. The fact is that high school students who take college acceleration opportunities are more likely to succeed in college. And we'll go through the benefits in just a second, okay? So if you ever hear advanced coursework or college level work, that's what we're referring to. So the next slide then goes right to the positive impacts. And we'll show you in just a minute how competitive things are. But the beauty is, it's not just that you get college credit to save money. You're increasing your honors point average because you get weighted credit. So if I take a class and it's an ACE class or an IB class or a dual enrollment class and I earn an A, I can earn up to 6 credit points as opposed to 4. Basically, it boosts up my GPA, which we'll see in a second that colleges really look at. Second is, of course, you earn college credit. If your child takes a dual enrollment course, it's free. If your child takes an ACE course and takes an exam, it is free. In Florida, we pay for all of those, and the credit goes to the student so that when they go to college, and each college accepts, a different number of courses. Most colleges take just about every course you take and pass. Some of the Ivies will not. It gets really complicated, but you earn college credit. That's why I use that term potential. And of course, you gain that competitive advantage. You're not getting into the school of your choice unless you push yourself to take one of those courses. You get qualified for scholarships. And if you haven't checked out the Bright Future Scholarship for our ACE diploma programs, for our IB diploma programs, it is really incredible. We have literally some schools do up to as much as 200-300 students per year of the ACE diploma and the IB diploma that gets them to qualify for essentially a full tuition paid for. There's a link in the slide deck should you want to check the Bright Future Scholarship out. Okay? It's a great benefit, all because you're doing college level work. If you don't do college level work, you're being left out. So that's why we feel like our job is to really, again, that year-long advocate for all of our kids, whether their parents request it or not. We want them in there and we want them successful with that opportunity. Okay? So the next slide then looks at some data because you start to think to yourself, well, how does this affect their academic achievement when it comes to the FSA or the new assessments that are coming out? Well, if we have data from 2021, which shows us, if you look all the way to the right, okay, you're seeing 2021, and you see orange and you see blue. All the way on the right, you see that L3, and you see the blue, and you see the orange, right? All the way to the right. What that basically shows you is that our level 3 students score higher on the FSA that are in a college level course than the ones that don't. So that orange is higher than our blue. The number is 87% of our level 3 students that are in an ACE course, and specifically we looked at ACE General Paper. 87% of the kids that got access to that course that were a level 3 on the FSA or higher did better because they were in that college class than not. The level 3 kids that were not in the college level course only passed at an 80% rate. So there was a benefit. So then, of course, you're going to ask yourself, well, what about the kids that were level 1s and 2s? Look at the bar next to it, the second to last bar. Sets of bars of the blue and orange. We see the level, the L1, the L2. It was about 18% of the L1s and L2s that did not take a college level class were able to pass the FSA that year. Of those students that took that ACE General Paper course, it was about, and I'm looking at it, I want to say it was 30%. So we about doubled our passing rate by giving our students access. And again, we looked at ACE General Paper, which is one course only, showing you the power of giving students access to the course. And this really helps us with our teachers and getting them to understand that when we give students an opportunity for a more rigorous class, it benefits them on even things like the FSA. So this is added on top of that slide that you just saw, which is why one of the number of reasons why college level work is so important to us. Okay? The next slide just goes through what the college admissions are. Now there's a lot of data on this, but if you look at it's the 2021 SUS admissions, it just basically gives you what was the average acceptance for the different colleges. You see FAMU, FAU, FIU, and so on. Of course, UF, Central Florida. But if you remember, I talked about when you get an A in a college level class, you're up to a 6 point. Let me just base this for you. If you're a high school student and you never, ever take any college level courses, and you take all regular classes, and you get straight A's in all regular classes, your highest GPA you could ever get is a 4. That's an average of an A. Okay? If you start taking some college classes, you start averaging some 6s into there, which lets you get up to, our valedictorians get up to 5.2. That's how they do it. They take so many college level courses that those 6s that they get for A's average them up. Another conversation of that if you didn't get that. The point being, the more college level classes you get, the higher over the 4.0 you are. So if you look at, you can find, let's pick on 2 schools, FAU and University of Florida. If you look at FAU, it just shows you that it was the average, that little GPA, if you look at FAU and then go down 3 boxes, where it says S and F, F would be your fall term acceptance. The average was about 3.9 to 4.24, which means at FAU you were not getting in, on average, unless your GPA was over that 4.0, which means you must have the college level work. Go over to University of Florida. It's over 4.0 on the low end, which means those students had to have not just all A's, but A's in college level classes. So that's something to think about. You can, refer to this later on. Colleges determine, what they're going to use for acceptance. It's a complicated concept, but that's the GPA. If you're interested, it also has, of course, your ACT and SAT scores and so on. We did list private universities and colleges in Florida also, if you want to check it out. Not much different, okay? The whole purpose of this is giving our students choice. We want them to have the option to pick what they want to do, whether it's college, career, or both. And if you don't get them access to college level classes, we're essentially shutting them out of our private colleges as well as our state universities, okay? Hopefully I'm making a good case and you're following this. Next slide, shifting our mindset. We talked about we don't want to just give access to one class. we want to give students an entire diploma program. Whole nother conversation we can have another night. But if you take the right number and the right combination of coursework, you can earn what's called a diploma. And that's what's going to get you that bright future. So that is a huge financial bonus to our students. Again, there's a link on the other slide. It's called the ACE diploma or the IB diploma. So we really want to push that. The beauty is that if you pass those classes at the bottom of this slide, you got a 70% pass rate in Palm Beach County over the last 10 years. You got a good opportunity. So with the pass rates that high, we don't want to shut our kids out. We want to be as intentional as possible to identify, target, recruit, and most important, retain these incredible young scholars to stay in these programs. Okay. Next slide just kind of shifts us to middle school, which I won't spend too much time on, but just think that if this is so important in high school, doesn't it beg the question, which is where we're heading in just a second, to elementary, but wouldn't it be important to give them pre-work or preparatory work or what's called the pre-ACE program so that it's not brand new to them when they get into ninth grade, that their middle school actually identifies them and gives them some work that will prepare them for the college level work in high school. That's our goal. That's our idea. And that's really what the benefits will be for our pre-ACE and our IB middle years. Gives them exposure, gets them ready to be prepared for the curriculum. It gets the teachers to collaborate so that they can see the skills and the standards the kids need to master and be able to be prepared when they get into high school, and they're on that trajectory. And then finally, same thing on the next slide, I believe, is our data points. It shows you that when we accelerate our students in math in sixth grade, they not only benefit from everything I'm talking about when it comes to college acceptance, GPA, but also their middle school scores are essentially the same thing. And for the sake of time, if you look at the orange versus the blue, it's our students that get access to advanced level work on every single level. Our students that are on or above grade level, at grade level, and below grade level. At each level, the orange is higher, which means students with access to those advanced courses, no matter whether they're above or below grade level, they score higher on standardized tests. Okay? So we hope that you understand that. Then, as we did this as secondary, which is my background, I spent a very little bit of time in elementary, it started to beg the question, okay, if we're doing this in secondary, how do we get them prepared for in elementary? Because the last slide is so important that if we don't prepare them in elementary, one more, we're not going to get them in the math classes in middle school that will allow them to do this coursework in high school. So, if you can't get access to Algebra 1 by 7th grade, which is what this slide's showing you can't do your calculus work in high school. So then we started saying, well, we need to collaborate even better and vertically align our efforts to go down to elementary. So to do that, we'll hear what all the great things that are happening in elementary from Dr. Sanders.
Thank you. So here, if you look, before we click to the next slide, and you can see where it talks about third grade AMP. So that's where we really started a lot of this work in elementary. So I'm going to follow that math path and then go a little bit deeper in how elementary works differently. So the benefits of the accelerated math plan, and again, we call that AMP, so when you see that name, every student's empowered to think of themselves as a successful mathematician. You've seen from the graphs that the acceleration allows more opportunity and access to advanced coursework, not only in math, but also in science. We're going to go ahead and jump to the next slide so we can see what that data looks like. So here you can see this is where third, fourth, and fifth graders that might be participating in the AMP program, we see the exact same things that we saw in the secondary slides with the orange bars being higher than the blue bars. Now you may notice that in 2021, everything looks a little bit different. We know that COVID took a specific hard hit with the remote learning and students with that particular piece with math, because math builds upon itself. So that was an area that got hit one of the hardest, but we're coming back very strong. Next slide.
Dr. Sanders, if I could jump in for a second, just for everyone online. So we presented 3 data points so far on the effects of students in accelerated coursework in 9th grade in ACE class, 6th grade advanced math, and now the AMP program, and we see a similar pattern. Once students are exposed to that more rigorous coursework, if you will, and that acceleration, they tend to do better overall, and not just a little bit. So just want to pull that out. It's very important to us as a system that we found that, and it's very powerful, and we're going with it. So, sorry.
So let's talk a little bit about what master board or systems analysis looks like at the elementary level, because we know the model for elementary schools works very differently. So the first thing that elementary schools do is they really look at their internal systems. They look at their school-based team processes. They look at various support models. What does that look like with ESE students with different exceptionalities? What does that look like for our English language learners and those support models? And also evaluating for equity and access for historically underrepresented groups. So this is, again, going back to that cycle. It happens every year, and we look through the data and we look at where are we doing things well and where do we need to improve. And that would also include really looking at teacher data and which of our teachers are really being successful with specific groups of students and being very intentional in assigning those students to those teachers. One of the other things that elementary has been doing over the last few years is expanding gifted and advanced courses at the elementary level to include students with potential, even though they may not be formally identified as gifted. So no longer are they all pure gifted classes, but we do have gifted and talented and gifted and advanced classes to give more opportunity. They have been looking at being very intentional with ELL learners and ESE learners and finding the right content areas for those students to also have opportunities for advanced coursework, and then putting in that additional support. So for example, we may have an ELL student who is very, very strong in math, and maybe they are doing language acquisition, but we certainly do not want to hold them back in math. So how do we put them in advanced math and make sure that we have ESOL support in that room for that student? Third grade AMP, as you saw in the previous slide, that is really a hold harmless year. So in third grade AMP, or the accelerated math program, that year would be all of third grade and half of fourth grade standards. So, but every student would still take the third grade assessment, regardless of if you were categorized in the AMP course or not. So by really opening those gates wide in third grade and try to catch and identify students that maybe have flown under the radar, and giving them those opportunities. We never want to overwhelm a student, but we want to make sure they have those opportunities and follow and monitor them and provide support where appropriate. And lastly, we have a lot of dual language programs in our district, and so our dual language schools needed to make sure that they have advanced opportunities within the dual language programs so that dual language students may participate in dual language and also be in AMP and vice versa. So what do we do from that? So we looked at what we were doing in secondary schools, and we knew that we needed to have vertical articulation and get elementary principals talking with middle school principals. So there were a series and every year it continues, of those articulation meetings. And through that, the middle school principals get to share what does their master schedules look like, what courses are they offering, and instead of only doing AMP, most recently we said, what about all the other content areas? We watched what was happening with ACE General Papers and advanced coursework up in high schools. And so this most recent year, elementary school principals created teams, teachers were included, and every single fifth grade student was looked at with an individual eye and recommended for up to 4 advanced courses for all of the core coursework. When they made those recommendations, it was the idea of, instead of a 6th grade guidance counselor looking at only FSA data, the elementary schools really know their children. They know what they've done over the last few years. A lot of times they've been at that elementary school for multiple years. In elementary, you may have 1 homeroom teacher or 1 or 2 teachers if you're having departmentalized, but they tend to really know their students inside and out. So it was very important to capture all of that information and knowledge from the elementary level in providing those recommendations. There is a formal recommendation process, and those teams could recommend 1 advanced course or up to 4 advanced core courses per student based on their strengths. In addition, the elementary schools could add a comment or note that they recommended advanced for this particular student with additional support. So they're letting the middle schools know right away, these are students that we see potential. They may not be at proficiency level yet, but we know with the right support we'd like them to try. It's up to the middle schools to then determine what that additional support looked like for their campus. It may be through small group instruction, it may be through tutorials, it may be with resource support teachers, and additional time, sometimes doing double block algebra or something like that. So this year, we found that it was very successful with that first round of really not only using AMP as an accelerator from middle school, elementary to middle, but for all 4 core courses. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Miller to talk about the results.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. So, so we have lots of great results from this work that's been going over the past few years. I'm going to talk about 4 specific data points. The first data point has to do with high school enrollment, which is where Dr. Summers started with. Represented here on the slide, we have what's called our Power BI Masterboard dashboard. There basically is 2 sets of data, one on the left and one on the right, and it's really representing the enrollment of high school students in advanced coursework in 2 different perspectives. So I'm just going to take you through it really quick, set you up for success. On the left side, that's what we call representativeness. I like to call this equity, or our attempt to quantify equity through the enrollment in these advanced courses. Represented on the left side, you have your 3 major demographic subgroups of students represented on the bottom, which is Black, Hispanic, and white students. And within each of those groups, we have data from 2022 and 2023. I'm going to focus on the left side, the 2 sets of clustered bars for Black students for 2022 and 2023. Basically, the gray bars you could think of as representing the population of students. So in this case, it's all high school students. And what percentage of those high school students in 2022 were Black? So we can see here the gray bar is 26.1%. That's how many students, what percentage were Black in all of our high schools last school year. This school year, we have about 25.7% of our high school students are Black, and so forth with Hispanic and white. You can see the percentages, and that shows the changes over the last 2 years. But the blue bar takes, we look at all the students in high school that are enrolled in advanced courses, and specifically to Dr. Summers' point, enrolled in dual enrollment, AP, IB, and ACE. What percentage of those students that are, again, enrolled in advanced coursework in high school are Black? So we can see in 2022 is 19.1%. Our goal with this is that the gray bar and the blue bar would be very similar in their percentage. Because then if we are, then we know the percentage of students, Black students, Hispanic students, and white students matches the representation in the population across our high schools. So just to do a little analysis and a little more explaining here. So in 2022, about 26% of the high school population was Black, but only 19% of the students in high school in advanced coursework were Black. So there's about a 6%, 7% gap there. We wanted to reduce that gap, and you can see in 2023, Black students, there was a tightening of the gap, so there was a small decrease in the percentage of Black students representing the high school population, and a small uptick in the percentage of Black students in advanced coursework in high school, so there's a tightening there. When you look at the next 2 sets, you see Hispanic students, you see that gray and blue bars are almost aligned, which is great, which is where we want it to be. And then we can see with the last 2 sets on the right, the white students are overrepresented in advanced coursework in high school. That's one perspective, comparing it to the population. On the right side, this is just our straight enrollment rate. So if you look at the first 2 blue bars on the chart on the right, that represents Black students from 2022 and 2023. What percentage of Black students were actually enrolled in advanced coursework? So kind of just a little different metric, a little different denominator there, but as we can see across Black students, Hispanic students, and white students, we do see them increasing in their enrollment across the board, which is really great to see. I'm going to jump down now. I'm going to continue. There's going to be the same calculations here, but here we see our English language learners represented from 2022 and 2023 on the left side for our equity. And we see the gap between the representation in the high schools and representation in advanced coursework. However, we do see increases in enrollment rate thanks to all the great work going on in the schools with the master board analysis and being intentional. We see similar patterns. This is our free and reduced lunch students. And again, this is high school. We do see those gaps between the population and the representation and the advanced coursework. But on the right side, enrollment rate, we do see slight increases, which is good. Jumping to our students with disabilities, unfortunately, we do see that those gaps on the left side. However, we are steadily making progress on the right side with enrollment. Second data point is basically same data, but looking at our students in middle school. So again, on the left side, we're looking at the equity, the representation of Black, Hispanic, and white students in the middle school population versus their representation in the advanced coursework in middle school. Now, in middle school, this is students taking any advanced core course, reading, math, science, and social studies, or high school core course. So you can see, looks like in middle school, the gray and blue bars in representativeness are closer together. Looks pretty good. And then also on enrollment rate, I just want to point out with our middle schools, I'm just going to read the numbers because it may be hard for you to see if it's small. But for our Black students from 2022 to 2023, we increased enrollment of Black students in our middle school advanced courses from 68% to 73%, which is great. Hispanic students from 67.5% to 74.3%, and our white students from 83.6% to 87%. So we see increases there. Last year we were in the high 60s and above, and now we're the low 70s and above. That's great. That's rock on middle schools. That's awesome. Keep up the great work. Let me drill down again, just like I did with high school, for our English language learners. You can see the gap on the left side, but the great increases on the right side in actual enrollment. Here again is our free and reduced lunch students. You can see a narrow gap there on the left side for equity, but yet a nice 6 percentage points increase of free and reduced lunch students enrolling in advanced courses in middle school. And then you see our students with disabilities, very similar to what we saw in the high school, but a nice 9% increase in actual enrollment rate on the right side. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about elementary. Elementary, as Dr. Sanders pointed out, is a little bit different of an animal. With middle and high school, it's very easy to see courses and deal with those unique courses. However, in elementary school, we do scheduling a little differently. So let me just talk through how this looks different. So on the left side with the representativeness or equity, this data is representing the elementary recommendations for advanced coursework in middle school that Dr. Sanders talked about. So this is actually our fifth graders last year and that were recommended or not for advanced coursework. So on the left side, the gray bar, the gray bars represent all of our fifth graders across the district going into sixth grade, and you could see the demographic breakdowns. And then the blue bars are those students that were recommended for advanced coursework or advanced coursework with support. And you can see the gaps are not that huge. We definitely have areas to improve in terms of equity. But, so the first year we did this, so we're looking forward to doing this in the future. On the right side, we have a little bit different reporting structure. These are stack columns by demographic subgroup. So we'll talk about Black students first. Just to describe each of the color codes, if a student was recommended for advanced coursework, just straight out, that's represented in green. Blue means a student was recommended with for advanced coursework with support. So we take the green and the blue together, and that's really what the percentage we're looking at. In the case of Black students, it's about 56%. The orange or gold, depending on how it's presented, are students recommended for regular coursework, and then the purple, I think it is, are for students recommended for access points in middle school. So you can see for Black students, then Hispanic students, we have about 60% of students were, Hispanic students were recommended for advanced coursework in middle school, and then white students, you see, was in the 80% range. Going to jump down. This is our English language learners. I'm going to stay focused on the right side just for this bit of the data. As you can see, it breaks up ELL students or non-ELL students. Of course, unfortunately, non-ELL students are represented more. However, we can see that we do have about almost 50% of ELL students recommended for advanced coursework in middle school, which is great. We'll talk about our free reduced lunch students. Again, staying on the right side. We have just about 60% of our free reduced lunch students recommended for advanced coursework in middle school, which is amazing. And then when we talk about our students with disabilities, it's flipped here, so you want to look at the rightmost bar, but we have about 43% of our students with disabilities were recommended for advanced coursework in middle school. Again, this is the first year this data is being collected, and it's being built into the master board process to inform and further be intentional. Now, this last piece of data, I think we'll get into some of the impacts of those recommendations. This is what we call middle schools courses back mapped to elementary schools. We really do this is a subset of the middle school data that I presented. This is just 6th grade students only. So you can see on the left side for our equity piece, for our 6th grade students in middle school, black students made up about 27% of the middle school 6th grade students in the gray bar on the left, and right around 26.4% of black students are in advanced coursework in 6th grade, which is right where we want them to be, right, representative and being equal right there. Shoving over to the right side with enrollment rates, we do see increases. I do want to point out Hispanic students, the middle two blue bars. Hispanic students in 2022, we had about 67% enrollment rate in advanced coursework in 6th grade. This year, as of August 29th, we have 78% of Hispanic students now enrolled in advanced coursework in 6th grade, which is huge impact right there. And, just amazing work to get to there. And we're all up in the mid to high 70s and above for all of our major subgroups. Just jumping down to our L's, I'm going to focus on the right side. This is just 1 year's worth of data, so, it is 2 years worth of data. So we see those increases again, 51% to 66% enrollment rate increases. That's huge for our English language learners. We see for our free reduced lunch students, 7% increase, more than 7% increase of enrollment in advanced coursework. Amazing. And then our students with disabilities from 48% to 59%. Nice growth there, and that's thanks to the intentionality and this great system that the principal supervisors have been working on with the principals and teachers to help more students, because we believe in more students being in accelerated and advanced coursework, because we see the positive impacts of it. And that was a lot of data I just went through in a pretty short time. So I'm sure you guys have questions for us on anything that we presented.
Okay, can you all hear me okay? I'm not sure, Ms. Postal, are you with us? I know you were between meetings. Okay, I'm not sure if she's with us, so what we'll do, thanks team, definitely great information, a lot of data. Charmaine, do you want to, I wasn't sure if you were with us. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead, and I see Dr. Diaz's hand, and then we also have Randy. So Dr. Diaz, I'll take Randy, and then Dr. Diaz, okay? So Randy, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you very much. I just have a clarification question. Our cleaning crew walked in right at the beginning of the presentation. distracted me. So the representation overall is the percentage of, let's say, Hispanic students enrolled in high school for the year 2022. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, that's just what I wanted so I make sure I'm reporting back accurate data. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Randy. Dr. Diaz?
Yes, you mentioned a number of times in your presentation that a particular category of student was recommended for advanced placement courses. I would like to delve into what constitutes a recommendation. To what extent are there objective criteria in those recommendations? And to what extent are there subjective criteria in those recommendations?
How do you push it? Okay. That's a great question. So again, at the elementary level, there's an entire team. They had a specific process where they looked at every individual student. So they know their elementary students. These recommendations are coming in the spring. Sometimes they've watched these children over multiple years. So they're going to use all of the data, the regular classroom data that they have, their district assessments, their diagnostics, their classwork, where we would talk about, and so of course that's a base, right, to show potential, but that's not everything. We also look to recommend additional students in with support. If we see they're a student that has great study habits, they're working hard, they have good attendance, they're participating, and or students that are being very successful with supports that are in place in elementary school. For example, they get small group instruction. Maybe they have an ELL teacher that works with them every day in a small group. And so we see that they may not have mastered, for example, this is just one example, language proficiency, but they're very bright, they learn very quickly. And so even though they may be showing a level 2, on their data assessments, those teachers advocate and say this child needs to be in advanced coursework, this is the right place for them. The other thing is looking at, there's 4 different content areas, and so really understanding that child's interests and where their talents may be. So when we originally started with AMP, maybe math wasn't your thing. And so we really didn't have that opportunity. Maybe you're really a writer or a reader. And so being able to customize those course recommendations come from a plethora of data. So it is a combination of both, but looking at potential, opening the gates wide, and giving them the opportunity. It's easier to let them pull back in 6th grade if it's a little too rigorous than to not give them the opportunity.
Just a quick follow-up. Does a district have a rubric that teachers or administrators or whoever has input into the recommendation decision, whether their child goes into advanced placement or not? Is there a rubric that is then used to channel those impressions so that there's some measure of consistency across the district?
So speaking to the secondary level, just to frame it, you could have a school with 2,500 students. Each student has 7 classes. So you're looking at 17,000 requests, right? I want to frame that piece, but before I answer your question. When it comes to a rubric, we have a general guideline for recommendation that we would follow. But the reason why we don't want to call it a rubric is we don't want it to exclude somebody from getting access to a course. So I think you had asked, is it objective or subjective? We might recommend that, listen, students that are proficient in reading in grade 9, they should be in course X. Students that are non-proficient in reading, they should be in course Y, unless we can take a teacher recommendation and or a student interest that they want to get access up to that higher level course. So we have general guidelines, but the reason why I mentioned that 2,000 times 7, remember, 17,000 requests across 7 different subjects. Each subject can be somewhat different. So we try not to have rubrics because we have so many subjects and so many requests. We try to have guidelines. On top of those guidelines, we don't want to create barriers or gateways for kids to be denied access. So I hope that kind of answers. Do you have a follow-up that you would want more specifics to? We have guidelines with test scores and grades in the previous course. So like if you're in English honors in 8th grade and you got an A, look, you're going right to the next honors course. If you went regular and you did really well, we want to move you up. Any of our rubrics, we try to work with each school individually because they all have their own programs to get kids to be given access to the more rigorous course that they can handle. The only challenge that comes in sometimes, like in secondary, we have report cards. That's our challenge, is when kids get access to the course and they're not earning an excellent grade. That's where we try to put interventions in place. But it's a battle. You know, it's a challenge sometimes with parents wanting the kids out. But you have any follow-ups to that, or did I answer your question?
Thank you.
And I think to add on, Craig, to what you were saying as it pertains to the rubric, or how we look at the total child, and we want to be very careful with that, is the work that, how closely I think the principal supervisors work together in terms of trying to have some kind of alignment to when you are doing this process with your schools. I think that's also important.
Yeah, we all work together, and, you know, we do use the data warehouse to identify kids, and that's part of that circular process that you saw on the first slide that I showed, that we are checking data, and part of our process is to where we want to make sure not are we only equitable in our access, but that we are not letting any kids slip through the cracks. That, listen, we use a data approach to find any student that has potential. We'll pull them and say, look, we want you to take this course. We'll review the courses that they select sometimes and say, listen, yeah, I think you need to try something a little more rigorous and challenging. Let's get mom and dad on the phone. So, you know, but I just want to answer that rubric piece. It's just, we don't, teachers sometimes really try to create the rubrics, and we want their input and feedback, but we just really want to make sure that the rubrics aren't used to gatekeep, and keeping kids out. That's our challenge. We try to schedule on potential, not on past performance.
You good, Dr. Diaz? Did you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Randy, I'm sorry, Rachel, and then Randy. Rachel?
So I had a question, especially with our ESE students. A lot of students struggle with reading and text level, but they are very competent with their understanding, their logic, they can handle the coursework, but they need accommodations, they need things read to them. And I know in elementary school, many classrooms they have support facilitated classrooms where they have an additional teacher in the classroom. And then I've noticed, some middle schools have it, maybe fewer high schools, but in the advanced classes. Could there be a way to have in every school, like middle and high school, advanced classes that are support facilitated, so these children don't have to leave the classroom to take a test? So they have someone there to support them when they need it. I don't feel like there's many of them. Has there been any data to see in every course that's offered how many are support facilitated that are advanced? Has anyone collected data on that? And I think that would be very interesting to see.
I don't believe that we have a data warehouse specifically for that, other than we could access that. But to answer your question, we do have a number of students with IEPs that are in, advanced college level coursework. As you can see, our numbers, and they are trending up. So we do have support facilitation, but if you would ask for data, no, don't have a specific report for that, but I do know that in many of our schools, it's not a barrier. And it's not a toll booth that you have to pass through if, many of our students with IEPs are in college level classes. Even, you mentioned language arts, even if language arts, ACE general paper, we have a number of kids there. I hope that answers it. Did you want something more specific?
If I could add, Dr. Summer, it's a great question. I think a great part about this master board process is we ask more questions and we go deeper and we iterate. I'm going to take that, and we don't generate that right now as a report, but I'll bring that back to the group, provide that to Dr. Sheffield as a follow-up. It's a very interesting question.
Thank you.
Because I feel that having a child with disabilities that is in advanced classes, she's doing well, but if she was in a classroom that had another teacher, I think that would support her just to another level. I don't know if she's actually done very well, so I'm not talking about her specifically, I'm talking about other students in general, from people I've spoken to. I think if they, you were talking about how if a child needed small group instruction or needed, something better, because of their disability, they needed support. And I don't feel, or I haven't heard of a lot of advanced level classes with a co-teacher, if that makes sense. I see them in the ESC classrooms or in the regular classes, but I haven't seen a lot of that. And I think that would encourage more ESE students to go into the advanced level classes.
Okay, I mean, a good point, Rachel. And I have to say, in regards to when you're looking at the data, and we're seeing that more students are having access. And one thing that we've done here as a district here essentially is that we have stepped back and looking at the data and realizing to say, okay, is our training around the instructional pedagogy in terms of the training that we're providing to our teachers, is it aligning, and how are we continuing to enhance the instructional pedagogy of our teachers? So starting back in January, one thing that we are doing, how we used to have our AP roundtable discussions where we bring all of our teachers together for those particular contents to where they do have those collaborations, vertical and horizontal. That's one thing that we're looking at bringing back. And also, there was a lot of the ACE Cambridge, as Dr. Summer indicated, that's one of the largest here in Palm Beach County, is to where we used to offer a lot of those trainings here in the district for our teachers, where we would have Cambridge to come in. And actually, I think it's actually not 2 weeks, I think it's on December the 7th, where I'm actually meeting with the CEO from Cambridge here in my office to where we can talk about the growth that we're seeing here in Palm Beach County, look at this same kind of data, and to talk about those kind of support structures and mechanisms that may be out there that we're not familiar with, to make certain that our teachers and our students are being set up for success based on the kind of trend that we're seeing. And I'm actually going to take him to visit some of the schools. But we recognize that there is an increase, but we want to make certain that the human capital and what we're doing as it pertains to providing the support for our teachers is going to align in terms of maximizing the opportunity, the growth opportunity there for our students to where they are successful.
Thank you.
And Charmaine and Randy. Charmaine, do you want to go, or Randy?
Charmaine can go ahead.
Randy, we may have lost her, so you want to come on? She may have to come back in.
Oh, okay, thank you. And I didn't say it last time, and I want to say it this time, is that thank you for this presentation. As someone that's constantly putting presentations together for funders, I know how much work it is, so thank you. I have just two questions. When we're looking at elementary to middle and middle to high school, do we have data on two things? One is recommendations versus actual enrollment in the advanced classes. And two, with ESE students, is actual enrollment versus completion of the advanced classes.
Great questions. Let me take each one. I'm going to probably ask you to repeat the second one. But the first one, I think, was recommendations versus actual enrollment. This is the first year, or last spring was the first time we did these recommendations and collected the data on it. Since then, we did recently provide to the principals, what students actually are enrolled based on the recommendations. So principals have that. I don't have that data here to really go through high level with you. And can you repeat your second question, please?
Yes, and if I could remember it, no. What was it with, that just popped in my head. ESE students, what is their, that are enrolled in advanced level classes, their successful completion of them?
So the data we presented here is all about the actual enrollment. We can bring back actual completion data. I mean, we have that. It's just we're very focused on getting the kids in and making sure they're receiving quality instruction in those classes. But great question. I will follow up.
And so this may be something for next year. Once we get through this year with the recommendations, to look at the the recommendations versus enrollment and enrollment versus completion for ESE students. that may be something for next year, once you have more of a, more data to look at. And also, I just want to add, when we're talking about ESE students, we're talking about high-functioning students. We're not talking about students with IQs in, the 70s or, well, we know below. Most of them are not. They're in the alternate assessment. But the ESE students, they're mostly students that are high functioning, correct?
Correct. We do have in this slide, you see here, some students were recommended for access points, but correct. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Charmaine?
Hi, okay, I that last time I actually unmuted. The other time, my camera had me going all types of which ways, so I had to come back. So the question that I had, thank you for the presentation. All well done. Thank you, fellas. And young lady who I think I heard correctly. I can't really hear who is speaking, so thank you to all who presented. But the question I had was, with the new master board analysis, there was something that was stated regarding the, with the new master board analysis and the review process, the 4 steps, with the course selection sheet, will we be able to see those course selection sheets, 1, and 2, as an academic advisory committee, and 2, will the course selection sheets be consistent? In the past, we've had different variations of the course selection sheets, where some schools required, a teacher to sign off, and other schools required the guidance counselors. Some required parent signatures, some didn't. How would that look for middle and high school? And will it be consistent across the district, or will it be up to the schools?
You can go ahead, Mrs. Summer.
Hi, Ms. Postal. It's still a work in progress to get, you're not going to see everybody exactly on the same page because we want to provide nuance to our schools. Our expectation is that schools have a clear course mapping and course guide process. It's mentioned in one of the slides earlier where we've shifted, but again, we're careful of doing a one-size-fits-all because we find that it may end up getting some kids not to get access to a particular course. There's an incredible number of similarities, as you can see, across the board, but it's not exactly the same from school to school, just because their staffs are different, their programs are different, their choice program, everything is so unique in terms of each school. As long as you understand our expectation is that all schools maximize overall acceleration from an equitable standpoint, they do have the ability to have their art to be able to accomplish that.
And that's fair, that is fair, but I guess let me be a little bit more specific. Where there be certain criteria or expectations from the schools that will come directly from the district. Currently, there's no expectations that comes directly from the district. Everything is up to the individual schools. So if, hey, the fields of name, students' name, school, and course selection sheets and description of courses, at the bare minimum, that should be done at all schools. Still giving the schools the autonomy to do what they should respectively, but there is currently no consistent process that comes from the district, I guess, or no current expectation that comes directly from the district. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, so this is Jennifer Sanders. So what I can tell you we did with that same moving the stone the first time in elementary, all of those course recommendations went directly from the elementary school into the SIS system. So those are all recorded there. But we only list them as either advanced or advanced with support, with the understanding and idea that each middle school, for example, what their advanced looks like, depending on their choice programs and other things, may be different. So from the elementary, we're saying either advanced with support, but all of that is in a district platform is where that's recorded. And then it's up to the middle schools based on whatever offerings they have and the supports that they have to then place and schedule around that. But there is a district process for that piece. Elementary students may choose, their electives and some of those other things separately, but the 4 core courses were done in a district template in this computer system.
And I'm sorry, I see T and then Mr. Carlos.
Yeah, Dr. Coleman.
Mr. Coleman. And I'm not sure who's in the room that would like to speak.
Hi, good afternoon. Quick question from me. First of all, I want to start out by saying thank you for this information. This is very telling of the priorities that we are seeing in the school district. So I'm really excited to see that we are providing additional attention to how we work with our students that have been underserved historically and really positioning them for accessibility within our school system to advance course measures that positions them for college readiness. But having said that, I do also notice that within our district, we're starting to expand our K through, the number of schools that are K through 8. So the K through 8 model is very different from the traditional elementary, middle to high school model. How does the process, or what process is in place in order to ensure that those students that are within a K through 8 school setting are afforded the same opportunities that a student per se that is in a traditional middle school would see?
Well, that's a very good question. We do have some K8s. We actually have a K-12 as well, but it's essentially the same process. If you remember back from our slides where we look at some key courses that we want to make sure students are getting access to. So if you're in a K-8, the expectation is that, you hit that 80-90% mark of students in an Algebra 1 by 7th or 8th year, or in another advanced course. We apply the same metrics and essentially treat them as 2 separate schools for this purpose, if that makes sense, and give them the same metric. Because the expectation is if you're in a K, you're offering the same courses in your 6 through 8 as if they were in a comprehensive site. So this process lends itself very kind of, seamlessly to those schools. In fact, we find it's easier for them to be vertically aligned to do that type of work because they've known the kids since they were in kindergarten. And that's the beauty of the one plus of a K-8 system is that it's easier for them to accelerate their students because their teachers are working together in the content and they know exactly what the expectations are from one year to the next, if that answers your question. So the same process, essentially.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I was imagining that the fidelity of the process would pretty much be the same, if not affording more of an opportunity for alignment. But I will say that I think it floats back to what Ms. Postal noted earlier. I think that we need to continue to make sure that we are consistent because not all of our K through 8s afford at this current time students to go into that algebra track. And we know that algebra track really does prepare them and position them for, bright futures, their PSAT. It really just positions them for college readiness on another level. But thank you so much. Yes,
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman. Dr. Diaz?
Yes, first of all, thank you for an excellent presentation, and I'm glad that the percentages of each group are increasing slightly in advanced placement courses. My question is, and my suggestion, if we have future presentations on this topic, there are 2 things that I would like to know which were not available in the current data. One is the percentage of a particular racial or ethnic group in the district is not the same as the percentage of people from that group who requested advanced placement courses. So I would like to know out of each group, what percentage of that group requested advanced placement courses, then out of those who requested, how many were granted admissions. So think of it as a batting average, you know? Out of 100 requests, you got 60 admissions, so you have a 60% acceptance rate because these are competitive programs. The other thing that is not available in this presentation is I would very much like to know, since in the high schools, the goal of all of these programs is college credit, but for 3 out of the 4 programs, you're required to pass a test. We don't have any data as to what percentage of Black, Latino, or white students pass the test. So we don't know how many got the brass ring.
So what we said, Dr. Diaz, because now that we have the data for 2022 is included in here, well, Adam, this is for this year, right? I mean, for 2023, I'm sorry.
Just enrollment.
For
Okay, well,
2023?
all I saw was percentage of each racial and ethnic group participating in the various advanced level programs.
So at the beginning
I
of the year, once they take the test in the spring, so at the beginning of the year, which would be these same students, is to bring the data back to look in regards to how did these same students fare at the end of the year in terms of taking the test.
Yeah, I would just simply like to know what percentage of each group. We won't have the data, you know, for this year until next year.
Yes.
But we do have the data for the previous year. And what is the pass rate for each racial and ethnic group who is in an advanced program? And for those who took dual enrollment, what is the successful rate of completion? That is very important data, and I don't know what it is.
Okay.
We'll take that back. Thank you.
Dr. Sheffield, I echo Dr. Diaz's sentiments. I was going to ask a question regarding how helpful it would be if we could obtain additional information regarding dual enrollment and the student success rates. So
Okay.
thank you for that, Carlos.
My pleasure.
Duly noted, so thank you. So we have, well, we will go back, we have the students that enroll, we have FY '22, where we can look at the data, how successful they were with the end of their test. And then for '23, we say we know we will have to come back in the spring. And then we will look at, in terms of the FY '22 data for those students that were in dual enrollment, is what I'm hearing. Are there any other questions, any other feedback? Okay, Charmaine, are you there?
I am.
Okay.
I have no further questions. We want to thank everyone who presented today. Thank you so much for this presentation. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for everyone who stayed and was engaged at this time. Are there any other questions from staff? Do we want to discuss any additional presentations for next month?
I will,
There's
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, because at this time, I have no new business to come before the committee. So I'm turning over the mic to the staff if they had any questions or if they had any suggestions for next month. And hearing none, we've talked about course selection, course acceleration. We've talked about master board analysis. Any questions or answers from the committee? If there is none, that's okay. We will reserve your 20 minutes and we will adjourn at 7:10.
Okay, well, prior to adjourning, I do want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, if you celebrate, and a happy holiday that's coming up upon us.
Yep, we absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving and any other holidays in between, because you know there's a national holiday for every day, right?
I think Dr. Diaz,
Have a happy.
were you going to say something?
Yeah.
Dr. Diaz?
Yes, I just have one observation for future meetings.
Yes.
I am very concerned about HB 7, the anti-woke legislation, and to what extent schools are receiving challenges and what we are doing about those challenges that we may be getting from parents. As most of the people on the committee know, one of the things that has been outlawed is for teachers to teach anything that may cause some discomfort in students. As a former middle school social studies teacher, I can tell you that it is very difficult to present certain subjects and a priori know that no one in the room is going to feel any discomfort. So I would like to get some data or some information from the district as to what kind of challenges we are getting. Are we getting any lawsuits yet? And if so, what kind of guidance are we giving to teachers? Because this is, in my view, a very real challenge to academic freedom. And something we cannot measure is that even if there's not a formal challenge, as long as teachers are fearful, they can engage in a priori censorship. So if you don't bring up the subject, then nobody can challenge it. So if the district can provide us any information on any of those topics, I would be very grateful.
Okay, so House Bill 7, along with all those other legislative pieces, in terms of if we were getting,
Are you getting challenges?
Yes.
And if so, how are those challenges being addressed?
okay,
If you step back and think about what areas of the curriculum might be challenged, I doubt that the mathematics curriculum is under scrutiny. It is largely subjects that have human components, the social sciences, literature, et cetera. As someone who is an advocate of multicultural infusion, African American, Latino, and gender infusion, these are generally topics that were not taught to our students' parents. And anytime you teach something to a child that was not taught to their parents, that material, no matter how correct or how germane or how close to the curriculum guidelines, is more likely to be challenged. And my concern is that because of the climate, it will make it more difficult for teachers and people doing good work to actually infuse that content.
be their authentic self. We'll make it sure that we add it to our upcoming December agenda item, Dr. Diaz. So you will see it on, I will make sure that we add that as an agenda item for December.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Okay? All righty. So thank you all very much. And again, if I don't talk to you or see either of you, have a happy Thanksgiving. Okay?
Same to you. Thank you.
All right.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Hey, is there anyone that can open that side door for me at the district?
Which
I'm
side
literally
door?
out here.
Which one? Diane is coming.
Thank you.